Yeah, y'all been holding back on us, man. You gotta do that every Shabbat. He been holding back. You
All
know what
praise,
I'm saying? Oh, you done
all
got a
praise.
gift, man. You got a gift, my brother, man. Oh my
Glory,
goodness.
glory, glory. All praises, man. All praises.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ah, man. All praises. God.
Um, all praise the Most High Yah, Mashiach, Yahushua, for allowing us to gather in this sanctuary of time called Shabbat. Um, Myron and I have been going back and forth, as Myron mentioned, about some questions that one of the sisters had. And I think the purpose of this is the underpinning, and of, let me say it this way. Having played sports, you have to know your own playbook by rote before you go play a game, right? So I'm just going to let that marinate. And as we walk through this, I don't think this is going to be new for 99% of the people on this call. I recognize at all, but I've got some scriptures and things of that nature, but we'll decide as we move along how deep we go down into that rabbit hole. But really, just the main thing is before before we can be salt and light to others, we need to know what salt and light looks like and why we were chosen to be the people that he chose to be salt and light to the world. But that starts internally. So I'm gonna start here. And at its core, what the conversation is about the word Gentile. So I'll dig deeper into that in a few seconds, but I want to just kind of build a foundation right here in a couple of scriptures. And obviously, you guys know how we roll. So just this, especially now, because I'm sitting by myself, you guys jump in at any time because nothing you're going to see is something you probably haven't already seen before. Deuteronomy 4. And now, O Yasharal, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you. Of course, this is Moses talking, Moshe, and do them that you may live. And go in and take possession of the land that Yah, the power of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take away from it. That's a whole nother topic, but we could be here all day. That you may keep the commandments of Yah, your power, that I command you. And honestly, that sentence is a large part of why this conversation is happening today. I'm going to read two again. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yah, your power, that I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yah did at Baal Peor. For Yah, your power, destroyed from among you all the men who followed Baal Peor. But you held fast to Yah, your power, but you who held fast to Yah, your power, are all alive today. See, this is the key. See that I've taught you statutes and rules as Yah, my power, commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you're entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation, and that word is going to be important throughout this, great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God, a power so near to it as our power is near to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all the instruction law, all the instruction Torah or Tarawah that I set before you today? So I wanted to build the first level of the foundation here is that although we were called for a purpose, right? And the purpose of that is in reality to reflect the Most High and his Mashiach so that others, that be our salt and light, that others are drawn to us through the wisdom, knowledge and understanding that we portray in the statutes, commandments, and things of that nature that Yah has given us. I'm going to pause there before I move to the next scripture. Anybody have any additional insight? And I know there's a lot of precepts that can happen, that will be happening in here, but I'm going to pause here to see if anybody has any feedback or thoughts. All right.
Now you go
Deuteronomy 7. No, Deuteronomy 7, and then we'll dive into the etymology. That was kind of what Myron and I talked about, the etymology of the word, and then where we see it applied in the text. So I lay the foundation because a lot of times people get wrapped around the axle in the sense of what about everybody else, right? Because sometimes when we're doing our game planning, we're game planning for our offense and our defense. We're not looking at the other team yet. We've got to know our plays. That's why I'm using that theme. We have to know our plays before we can even think about and defeating it in the right word. For us, in this sense, I'm gonna flip it. Before we could ever teach someone else our plays, we have to know our plays before we can impact the nations that Yah intends for us to impact. Okay. When Yah, your power, brings you into the land that you're entering, I'm going to skip to 6. For you are a people set apart, holy Kodash, set apart to Yah, your power. Yah, your power, has chosen you to be a people of his treasured possession out of all the peoples on the face of the earth. Okay. There's no doubt that there is a distinction that Yah made of his people versus the other peoples of the earth. And we'll get to this after this. Amos 3. I'm going to stop here. But hear the word that Yah has spoken against you, O people of Yasharal. So we were out of order this time. Against the whole family that I brought up out of that land of Egypt. So now you see it says the whole family. So that's both, right? That's all 12 tribes. You only have I known of all the peoples on the earth. Okay. So I wanted to lay that foundation before, because I think most of us on this phone are keenly aware of our ultimate mission, as Yah says in Deuteronomy 32, 8 and 9, that he gave all the other 70 nations gods over them after the debacle at the Tower of Babel. But he said, Yashara'al, he chose as his people, right? So what are these people supposed to do? And that gets very confusing when Hebrew and Aramaic thought, or Eastern thought, Hebraic thought, gets flipped to Western thought of Greek, Latin, English, and the likes. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. So I'm going to read this. The word Gentile originated from the Latin Vulgate. Now remember, Bible was written the majority of it in Hebrew, some Aramaic after us being taken into captivity in Babylon, right? We learned Aramaic. We were there 50 years. Large part of the people that were taken there, like Daniel and them, were there for 50 years, right? So Greek, right? Well, we know it was Hebrew, Aramaic. Then we had Greek before Latin, then English. So we all have, well, maybe not all have played, but we know the game telephone. If I tell Myron, as all of us were around the table, and I say something to Myron, by the time he gets back to me, it's going to be twisted up. Okay. Right. Sometimes purposefully, sometimes innocently. Okay. The Roman doctrine called that Rome had inherited the promises of Israel, replacement theology. That is, the Roman Catholic Church had become the Israel of the Bible. The Latin word Gentile came to mean non-Israelites. Though its original meaning was broader, the evolution of the term's usage can be traced back to a few things. So Gentile is not how it was originally written in Hebrew and Greek. And we'll look at that in a minute. The Latin word gentilis originally meant belonging to a certain clan or tribe. It was derived from gens, plural gentis, which referred to a family, clan, or race. Okay. Biblical translation. The term gained its association with non-Israelites through its use of Latin translations, particularly from the Vulgate. In the Vulgate, gentilis was used to translate Greek and Hebrew words that referred to non-Israelite people. It was used to translate the Hebrew word goy, modern Hebrew, right? Plural goyim. If you see I am on the end of words, that just makes it plural, which originally meant nation or people, but came to be used specifically for non-Israelite nations. And I'll give you a timeline of when that, of course, would have happened. The Greek word for nation is ethnos in the New Testament, which was referred to non-Jewish or non-Israelite people who are also translated as gentilis. So Gentile, gentilis, came after goy, right, in Hebrew, came after ethnos in Greek, which both mean family, clan, race, nation at its core. Okay, so it's not that complicated, right? But it will. Let me just keep going. Anybody have any thoughts so far? Okay. Modern usage. Today, Gentile in English primarily means someone who is not a Jew, Judean. However, it is important to note that, and it's specifically that, right? In strict usage, any non-Jew can be considered a Gentile, regardless of their religious affiliation. So while the Latin gentilis originally had a broader meaning related to family or tribal groups, in its biblical translations and subsequent religious context led to its current primary definition referring to non-Jews or non-Israelites. Okay. Now, all of the collegiate words there. Yeah, I just wanted to give you the history of kind of how we got here to even be using the word Gentile again, because Latin preceded the English translation. And then when the King James or the other Bibles were written or translated, they oftentimes kept the word Gentile, which is a different connotation than the word ethnos in Greek or goy in Hebrew or goyim. So Genesis 12. Now Yah said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. Goy, you'll see me do paleo, but goy, G-W-Y-E, it can have a different sound. But goy means nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. Okay. The plural of that is Genesis 5. Actually, in the Bible, nations, it shows up before nation in the Bible. Genesis 10:5. From these, the coastland peoples, honestly, you'll see this translated in a lot of texts as Gentiles, spread in their lands, each with its own language by their clans in their nations, goyim, right? In the Tanakh, we know Tanakh is Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. That's where the moniker Tanakh comes from. The Israelites did not specifically use the term Gentiles to refer to other nations. Instead, we use the Hebrew word goy, which is just translated as nation or people. This term was used to refer to both Israelites and non-Israelites, depending on context. So, a nation, goy, nations, goyim, and even in Greek, ethnos has the same connotation. Gentile does not and can be confusing. Okay. Examples of goy used for non-Israelites. I just read that. I'm not going to read all of these. And in that day there should be a root of Jesse who shall stand as a banner to the people. For the Gentiles, that word is goy. So in your mind, I always say this, you have tapes playing in our head, right? And every time you see that word Gentile, not now maybe, but most of us, if I said that word prior to the knowledge of what we're talking about now, you would associate a Gentile as someone that is not an Israelite. Okay. Shall seek him, and his resting place shall be glorious. Jeremiah 4:1. The word of Yah came to Jeremiah the prophet against the Gentiles. Again, that if you look it up in Blue Letter Bible, that's going to say goy, against the nations. I want to say something, but I don't know everybody on the phone, so I'm going to hold it. But didn't we just read, don't add to or delete from, don't twist and turn the text? So this word brings a lot of confusion, mostly for the renewed covenant, New Testament. Okay. Examples of goyim referring to Israel. Genesis 12:2, I'll make you a great nation, goy, and I will bless you and make your name great. It's him talking to Abram. And so you shall be a blessing. Exodus 9:6, Yashraal is called a goy, Kadash, a holy nation, goy.
So they could have used the word Gentile in any of these spots.
They could have, and you see that word obviously a lot more in the New Testament, but you'd be surprised how many times you see it in the Old Testament as well.
So it's almost like they picked and choose when they wanted to give you the connotation of Gentile versus nation.
There you go. Right. So you, again, I'm not saying conspiracy theory, but you got red and a blue pill. So you take whichever one you want. But the reality of it is that the adversary is obviously out to confuse. And specifically, if you believe what I believe, that we're Israelites, then crafty counsel comes into play. I'm just going to leave it at that. But that is where a large part of confusion comes. Again, more, not even just here, because we may look at Isaiah 42. Do I want to do that? All right, let me finish these and then we'll come back to that. 2 Samuel 7:23, Israel described as a goy, ahad baaretz, a unique nation upon the earth. A unique nation, ahad, goy, nation, baaretz is in or upon the earth. A unique nation upon the earth. So we also are described at times as of course, nation, because Yashraal was a goy. So again, goy doesn't mean, right, on its face. Now we'll see shortly how we as a people nation began to use it in a very specific way once we came into our own territory. Okay. Now, Chris, say what you said again about Gentiles, if you can repeat that.
Yeah, it just seemed like the editors here use Gentiles where they want to give you the connotation of nations when they could use it any, they translated intentionally to confuse you based on what I'm seeing.
I am 100% with you. Now, do me a favor. I'm going off script right here. Isaiah 42, go open up your words, if you will. All right.
All right, I'm there.
Isaiah 42, my heading, I'm reading the ESV. Yah's chosen servant, and I'm going to read the first couple of verses and then we're going to jump around. Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. Now, I have this conversation with a lot of people. As soon as we read nations, we think other people, correct? Most of the time, right? And exactly. Contextually, you know, if you're reading one of the prophets like Isaiah, you already know that we've been divided as a nation. Okay, so we got to keep that in the back of our mind. So I'm gonna jump from there, and I'm gonna jump, if you will, to verse 8. I am Yah. I have called you in righteousness. I will take you by the hand and keep you. I will give you as a covenant for the people, a light to the nation. Okay, when you see nations, goyim, again, let's keep in mind, by the time Isaiah is writing this, we are a divided nation. That makes sense? As Israelites. To open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prisons, those who sit in darkness. Okay. Now do me a favor, jump to 15 of Isaiah 42. Again, he's going to 16, and I will lead the blind in a way that they do not know, in paths that they have not known. I will guide them. I will turn the darkness before them into light, the rough places into level ground. Okay. Jump to 18. My heading says Israel failure to hear and see. Hear you deaf, and look you blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger whom I send? Who is blind as my dedicated one, or blind as the servant of Yah? He sees many things but does not observe them. His eyes are open, but he does not hear. And Yah was pleased for his righteous sake to magnify his instruction and make it glorious. But this is a people plundered and looted. They are all of them trapped in holes and hidden in prisons. They have become a plunder and none to rescue, spoiled with none to say restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will attend and listen, for the time has come? 24. Who gave up Jacob to the looter, and Yashraal, Israel, the northern tribes, to the plunderers? Was it not Yah against whom have sinned, in whose ways they would not walk? I would go to 42, but I'm at 43 when I'm a skip. I know Big Chris, that's one of his favorite scriptures. But you can see, if you read this without a tape playing in your head, and when it says he sent a savior to the nations, we automatically apply that as the rest of the nations of the world, when in reality, from reading this text, 41, 42, 43, he's sending a servant to the nations of Yashraal. I mean, right? We're a divided nation, right? We're a divided nation at this point in time. So we're not singular in that when David and a large part of Solomon's reigns we were a nation. So now there has been, by the time that Isaiah is writing this, the northern tribes have been taken captive, okay, by Assyria. And we'll see in a second how the southern tribes looked at them and why they looked at them a certain way once the northern tribes were taken captive. Anybody have anything to add to that? But again, I use that, and 43 would even drive it home even further. But I think you get the point. I suggest, if you haven't read those 41, 42, 43, read it without thinking. Read it for what it says and who it's talking about. Because again, it'll tell you Jacob and Yashraal in 43 as well. But we look past that because the tape playing in our head that he sent a servant to everybody. Okay. Which I think we know from Matthew 14. Right. That's not typically the case. Anybody have anything? Chris, you said, this is what I said here. It's important to note that the translation Gentile in English is mainly an interpretation than a translation. So Chris, you echoed exactly what I wrote. It's not a translation of a word. They chose a word that they wanted an interpretation rather than a direct translation, because otherwise, how then can Rome now call themselves Yashraal?
Right. Yeah, it's an insertion. It's an insertion. They inserted that in the text. You know what I mean? To, like I said, to include everyone. You know what I mean? And again, it goes back to what we talked about last week on the 3 o'clock fellowship with Chris. You know, bringing back Psalm 83, right? So that the name of Yasharal will be no more. You know what I mean? So now we're gonna bring everybody else into the fold, and this now whatever. Now everybody becomes a spiritual Israel, if you will, and we're gonna insert this and insert that, you know, in order to confuse the masses. You know what I mean? So it's
I got you. And yeah, and can we call out what is the damage to that? When they did that, they wanted to inflict damage. They wanted to make it inclusive because they wanted to make it seem like everyone was in the same ship here. You know what I mean? So when you're speaking to that, let's talk about the damages. What are the damages to that? For 90, everybody on the call, they may know, but that's a great call out because I consider it crafty counsel. You know what I mean? What are the damages to doing that?
Let's turn to Psalm 83. That's where that is. Let's just turn to Psalm 83 and read at least the first 8 verses. And you guys, I'm gonna refer to some stuff because you guys know between the Matrix and American Gods and others, Lucy, I had a whole lot of movies where I can pull spiritual things from. So I don't know who has or has not seen American Gods, but in American Gods, the whole theme of American Gods is Psalm 83. That is when a God's name stops being spoken, the God loses its power. Okay. So right now, think about this. Chris brings this up, and it's a very, very good point. Big Chris brings this up often. It's a very, 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 very good point. Saying God and saying Yah is 2 different things, right? So the tape playing in our head is that there's just God and there are not any other gods, and then we can just say God and not his name. Well, they want his name not to be spoken any longer, and the reason why that is the case, we'll see in Psalm 83, verse 1. Says a psalm of Asaph, O power, God, G-O-D in Hebrew means power. O power, do not keep silence. Do not hold your peace or be still, O power. For behold, your enemies make an uproar. Whose enemies are they? We're a casualty of war because he put his name on us. They come after us because they're coming after us to get to him. Does that make sense? Right. Okay.
That's right.
3, let me go back to, for behold, your enemies make an uproar. Those who hate you have raised their heads. They lay crafty plans or crafty counsel, depending on your translation, against your people. They consult together against your treasure ones. We'll have to pause right here. That's no different than the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They hated each other, but they conspired together to get rid of who? The Mashiach, right? That's the same thing that happens here. These nations that we're about to read don't like each other, but the enemy of my enemy is my what? Friend, right? They say, come, verse 4, they say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation, as a goy, let the name of Yashraal be remembered no more. If Yashraal's name is remembered no more, because what does 2 Chronicles 7:14 tell us? If my people who are called by my what? Name. So if they eliminate true Yashraal and its understanding to go all the way back to Deuteronomy 4 of his statutes, laws, and decrees, which is our witness, which is our salt and light to the rest of the nations, then they've won. So Chris, to your point, one of the things, the dangers of this is we've lost the understanding of the way of Yah. So we can't lead people to the Mashiach and Yah, right?
Absolutely.
Verse 8, verse 5, for they conspire with one accord, they're all on the same page, against you that make a covenant. Against you they make a covenant. The tents of Edom, most of these people are our relatives. The tents of Edom, we know Edom is Jacob's brother. The Ishmaelites, we know that's Abram's son. Moab is a Hamite. The Hagarites are relatives. Gabal and Ammon are Hamites. Amalek, Philistia, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher is Hamite. Also is one of us, has joined them. They are the strong arm of the children of Lot. I'm not going to read the rest because I start right at Salah, Selah, right? Just pause and reflect on that. They're trying to get rid of us because they're trying to get rid of our power. If anybody watched Game of Thrones or any of that kind of stuff, you already know that whenever someone won a battle or lost a battle, they associated with that with the superiority or inferiority of their God. Okay. So all these concepts, when we see in movies, we just think it's movie, but in reality, in the spirit realm, that was kind of how it worked. Does that make sense at all?
It does.
Right. Chris, anything else? Anybody else on the phone? Again, I'm gonna reread this. It's important to note that the translation Gentile. Go ahead, Myron. I'm sorry.
No. I was glad that you mentioned that reading those nations, those 10 nations, because it's been brought about. I know there's teachings and things of that nature that these are Europe. This is the European Union or whatever the case may be. When clearly, if you literally look up these nations and things like that, you can point these nations back to nations that surrounded us, in the land. So again, these nations are Shemites as well as Hamites, that surrounded us. So all praise for that.
Right.
Well, if you don't try to fast forward time, when you realize, to your point, because a lot of things have been whitewashed, right? If you just you just go back and look at the era where this came, when this happened, the Greeks, right, and Romans weren't in power. It was, to your point, Hamites and the Shemites, right, at that point. Honestly, let's be upfront. Besides the Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10, where it talks about Japheth, the only other times that it talks about Japheth and his crew is in Ezekiel, I want to say 38, 39 or something around there, where it's talking about Gog. And then in Revelation, where it's talking about Gog and Magog. They don't really play a large part in this text, except for Edom, our brother, is everyone and no one at this stage of the game, right? And how Edom gave away his birthright and how envious and jealous of Jacob he was that he gave away his birthright. And now Jacob, what is the chosen seed of which the 12 tribes come from. So that animosity has and always will be there. They just don't exist as a people nation anymore, but they have integrated with everybody. So just like Morpheus said in the Matrix, they're everyone and no one, right? So it's not based on color, it's based on fruit, right? At that stage of the game. Because if you read Jasher, if you go back and read Jasher in like chapters 90, it tells you Kittim. Kittim, ancient name of Kittim was the ancient name of Rome was Kittim. It says that a large part of the Edomites were taken over by Romans. So by the time we get to the time of the Mashiach, there are Edomites that look like us, and there are Edomites that look like Caucasians. Okay. Because this happened before we even went. If you go read Jasher, this happens before we even get into the promised land, that Kittim took over a large part of Edom. So you know how many generations that was, right? So you know that they're everybody and nobody, meaning they're integrated. And if you go back and look at Genesis 36, Edom is the only nation that has a genealogy written in the Bible besides Israel. So think about that. That's how much impact they will have as a thorn in our flesh. From in the womb, oddly enough, the war started in the womb, right?
Right.
Rebecca said, "Nations in my womb," right? And the war started in her womb, and it's not going to end until, oddly enough, a lot of Edomites migrated up north. It won't end until the clouds crack.
Right. And Danny, I always call back that when you said that when Yeshua came, he made a distinction, right? He didn't say I came for everybody. He said he came for only the lost sheep of Israel. And that was a distinction to me, because he called you out as a people. You know what I mean? And that was key. He made a clear distinction. I mean, that was as clear as it could be.
Well, let's look at it now. I'm going to assume everybody on the phone has read that. Let's look at Matthew chapter 15, verse 21. Again, because
don't let me take you off the path.
If I'm no, this is a path. I mean, ain't no path. I mean, it is a path, but
yeah, it say the same thing too with Paul. I know that you got the original promise with Abraham. Israel will bless the world, but it's the same thing with Paul in Acts 9. He said, "Paul's a chosen instrument of mine, to speak to the children of Israel." It says Gentiles, but we know, based even on this, we know that's just nations, and it says in children of Israel in Acts 9. So you know who they talking to.
God.
100%, 100%. Chris, you want to read Matthew 15, 21 to 24? You want me to do it? Or
you can hit it, Myron.
Reading the ESV again.
I can rock it.
You got it? Okay, good.
Yep, Matthew 15, starting at verse 21. And it says, "And Yahushua went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, 'Have mercy on me, O Adonai, O Master, son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon.' Verse 23, but he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, 'Send her away, for she is crying out after us.' Verse 24, he answered, 'I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal.'"
I thought Jesus came for everybody.
Yeah. He just said, "What is her problem? I want to help you." I didn't get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I never got that.
If Israel ain't right, ain't nobody got no hope. Because Israel the one that got given the laws and the commands and everything.
That's exactly why I started this by saying, unless we know our playbook, we're of no value to anybody else.
Right.
Exactly. And that's the thing. We were just talking about this. I mean, the text tells you judgment starts at the house of Yasharal, right? So how can how do you invite others? Not saying that they, they can't come in at all, but how do you invite others into a dirty house?
Right.
That's right.
The house has to be cleaned first. And this is, this is all of this what we're talking about right now, just the insertion of the word Gentile to confuse the masses. This is part, all of this is part of cleaning the house. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Cleaning the house.
That's right. Language is power. We know Yah said death and life's in the power of the tongue. So just imagine, right, that be the case. Because again, that's the tapes that keep getting played in our head. Because I say this all the time. I went from Christianity to being, I'm going to call it a Hebraic, to now understanding who the people are. And not one word in this Bible changed in this path. It's the same words. It's just that I erased the tapes playing from my head and could see it for what it said. Right? Because people have conversations with me, and and I'll say, well, it says this. And I know, but it means that this. No, it says this and it means this. Right? It says this, but it means something different. You know what I mean? That's again a tape playing in people's head. I use that religiously because that's just the fact. Right? What did Eve bite? An apple. How many wise men was it? 3. Neither one of those are true. Right? But you ask 100 people, 99 of them going to say those two things. Now, how do we get? So now let's talk about. So from the outside in, we know that Israel is viewed as a nation, right? And the rest of the nations is viewed as nation, goyim, nations, right? Now we'll be able to see why Paul, as Chris kind of alluded to, why Shaul was called and who he was called to actually go speak to, right? So if we look at 1 Kings, do we need to read this? 1 Kings 11, we know that the nation got torn out of Solomon's hand because he had foreign wives who brought foreign gods in, and we know that's the first thing you should not do, right? So in 1 Kings 11, 1 through 14, he strips the king, or splits the kingdom, 10 northern, 2 southern. And the only reason why he didn't take the southern is because he had made a promise to Solomon's father, David, that someone from his lineage would always sit on the throne. So we became a divided kingdom in around let's call it 740 something BC. Okay. Historical context, after Solomon's reign, we just talked about this, the 2 tribes split. You had 3 primary, there are a lot of obviously prophets talking specifically, and we should read this. Let's go to Hosea chapter 1. And if somebody gets there before me, I should have told y'all up front, I'm dealing with a serious migraine, but y'all. Chris, you want to grab that?
Ease that up. Pray the Most High will ease that headache up, man.
There you go. He told me to get up there and talk.
I can take that one, which is Hosea.
Yeah, start at 1 and well, you can start at 2. 1 is giving you context of when Hosea is speaking. That's why to give you the lineage of the king, so you know a time frame Hosea is speaking into. But do me a favor, just go to verse 2.
Verse 2. Okay, Hosea 2. When Yah first spoke through Hosea, Yah said to Hosea, go take to yourself a wife of whoredom and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking Yah. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Delam, and she conceived and bore him a son. And Yah said to him, call his name Jezreel, for in just a little while I will punish the house of Jew for the blood of Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. And on that day,
pause there. Just pause right. So you see that he said, call his name Jezreel, for a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the blood of Israel. Okay. And I will put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. When you see house of Israel, well, just to go ahead on Chris, go to 5.
Yeah. Yep. And on that day, I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jeriel. She conceived again and bore a daughter. And Yah said to him, call her name No Mercy, for I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel to forgive them at all. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah, and I will save them by Yah. I will not save them by bow or by sword or by war or by horses or by horsemen. When she had weaned No Mercy, she conceived and bore a son. And Yah said, call his name Not My People. Wow, that's crazy. For you are not my people, and I am not your God.
Wow. Yeah, you can stop right there. So you see that Hosea was told to marry a whore, right? Yep. So he could feel the pain of Yah's pain that we were whores to Yah. We wanted all the other gods. We want to always look at what everybody else has and not focus on what all that Yah gave us. And he made him marry a whore. I'm just using the words of the text. And how would you like for your kids to be called No Mercy, right? That's literally their names.
And not my
mercy,
people. And not my people. Yeah.
Okay. And not my people.
That is a red flag. Now I'm gonna read 10. We'll go back and pause here. Now I want you to jump to 1 Peter 2 and 9. I'm doing this off the cuff now. 1 Peter 2 and 9. I want you to see that where this is fulfilled. Hold up. Let me read 10. Go to 1 Peter 2:9, but let me read 10. Because again, in this text, he said, you have a child called No Mercy and not my people. 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in that place it will be said to them, you are not my people. It shall be said to them, children of the living power. Okay. 11. And the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head, that they shall go from the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Let me ask you a question, whether it be the Ashkenazis or it be the true Israelites. Have we seen a gathering of all the tribes into the land?
No, we have not.
Okay. So no, we have not. Now let's look at 1 Peter 2 and 9, and let's see with the Mashiach's return, what people were being restored back into the covenant. 1 Peter 2 and 9, you're going to see from Hosea some very similar language. This is Peter. Actually, let me go back to okay. 1 Peter 2 and 9. But you are a chosen race, people, a royal priesthood, a Kadash Goy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness. I could point that back to Isaiah. Remember, it talked about dark multiple times. Out of darkness into the marvelous light. 10. Once you were not a people, not my people. Hosea. Once you were not a people, not my people, but now you are Yah's people. Once you had no mercy. Does that say that in Hosea?
It does.
Okay. Once you had no mercy, but now you have mercy. Okay. That's the rest. Yet through Yahweh Shah, the northern tribe people were restored. That is the Gentiles that Paul is going at. Meaning.
So go to 12. Go to 12 on that one.
Let's go to 11 then. I'm going to skip 11. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. We could be there for 10 hours. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify you on the day of visitation. So now if I gave this book to somebody coming out of church, they would say, see, he's talking to the Gentiles, meaning non-Israelites. He's talking to scattered Israel, who that we viewed, I'm going to use the word Gentile, that the southern tribes viewed as Gentiles.
Yes.
Not my people. Now, let me show you that. Let's go to Jeremiah, the verse, chapter 3, Jeremiah chapter 3. Anybody have anything there? We're freestyling now.
Yeah, and even, and just, again, we're referencing, context, you know what I mean? Just keeping contextual, just like what you just read in 1 Peter 2, 9 through 12, just keeping everything in context. If you read the very beginning of Peter, it's kind of alluding to who he's speaking to, right? The very beginning says, Peter, an apostle of Yahushua Mashiach, to those who are elect exiles of the dispersion, right? In all of these different, countries where they were scattered. So, again, just like we just reading how, exactly, and then who was dispersed, even as far as what we were just talking about, that northern tribe dispersed a long time ago into these places. And when you read these places, when you look up those places, those are the places where Paul and Peter and all of those, quote unquote apostles, where they sailed to go speak to our people.
I'm on. I mean, we even, I don't say gloss over. We either tape playing or ignore, even in Acts chapter 2, when the Holy Spirit fell. I don't go here, but it says, now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Judeans, devout men from every nation under Shamayim. Right? And it tells you what those nations were: Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, parts of Libya, both Judeans and proselytes. Again, those who have yoked themselves to Yashraal, right? So even there, the Bible tells us over and over and over again who is being spoken of and who is being gathered. And I think it was CO2's point is that, yes, we regather, we learn, we clean ourselves up, then the world is drawn to us by us being obedient. Because right now, can anybody in the world, I know, I don't know how many of us, I don't want to get the whole, I got 7,000 who haven't bent the knee. I know we're waking up quite a bit, but people don't associate what we're doing with the Most High. Who we call the Most High, Yah, Most High Yah. All right, go to Jeremiah 3, and I'm gonna show these on the screen right here. Transformation of the northern tribes lost their identity; they were exiled, right, and lost their distinct Israelite identity over time. Now, 2 examples: John chapter 4. We don't have to go here. That's the woman at the well who knew her lineage came from Jacob, but she said, our people worship on this mountain, your people worship on that mountain, right? So she was aware, but she had lost her distinct Israelite identity. And if you go back and understand why, when the tribe split, Jeroboam was the king of the northern tribe, split off. He forbid people to go to Jerusalem to the temple because he didn't want them. He wanted to mold them and keep them for his own. He would be afraid. He was afraid that they were going to go and stay yoked to the southern tribes and remain obedient to that. That's ultimately why that happened. So they got isolated, not just the ones that were carried off to Assyria, but also the ones who stayed in the land. Not everybody got carried out of the land. A large part did. And in Luke 2, you see the prophetess Anna, who knows she's from the tribe of Asher, which is one of the scattered tribes. Okay. Then they assimilated, married into other nations, right? And then we just read Hosea and we read this. And we're going to go here. I was ahead of myself. Go here, Jeremiah 3. So let's see why the northern tribes, and pay attention to the language here. The southern tribes begin to look at the northern tribes as, I'm going to use the word Gentiles, because of texts like this. Let's read Jeremiah 3, starting at verse 6. I'll take it. Yah said to me in the days of the king Josiah, have you seen what she did, that faithless one, Israel? That means northern tribes. How she went up on every high hill and under every green tree, and there played the whore. If you don't know what high hills and green trees are, those are places of worship, right? And there they played the whore. So they were fooling around with other gods in these places, right? And I thought after she had done all this, she would return to me. But she did not return to me, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. She saw that all the adulteries of the faithless one, Israel, I had sent her away with a decree of divorce. Okay, that's a strong word. So once, if I'm a Southern tribe person, once he's made it aware to us that he's divorced the Northern tribes, then they are no longer my people. You understand that? Now we can understand why the disciples said, the woman at the well was like, why, I'm using Danny terminology, why are you talking to me? I can't believe you're talking to me. Because the Judeans didn't acknowledge nor associate with the scattered. Okay, that's why he had to raise up somebody like Paul, because Peter and them was, they would probably buck the system, right? And he raised up Paul, to do that. All right, let me keep going. Yet her trick, so think about this. I'm gonna read 8 again. She saw that for all the adulteries of that faithless one, Israel, he had sent her away with a degree of divorce. They are no longer his people. So that is, you see Hosea saying that. Yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear, but she too and went played the whore. Because she took her whoredom lightly, that's crazy, she polluted the land, committing adultery with stone and tree. Yet for all her treacherous sister Judah did return to me with her whole heart, but in pretense declares Yah. Okay, so I'm gonna read down to 11 because we talked about the north and a couple of Sundays ago. And Yah said to me, faithless Israel has shown herself more righteous than Judah. So think about that now. The northern tribes are actually more righteous than the southern tribes, but Yah is not a man he can lie, nor the son of man he can repent. If he said it, he'll do it. If he promised it, he'll deliver it. Numbers 20-9. He had made a covenant with David that somebody from his lineage would always sit on the throne of Israel. So that's why, even though the southern tribes were more of a whore than the northern tribes, he couldn't break his word that he gave to David. 12, go and proclaim these towards the north. If you weren't on that, then anytime the Bible refers to the north, it's referring to evil. Okay, that's where evil comes from. Just go do a search in Blue Letter Bible or something that says north. 99% of them are going to point you to something adversarial to the Most High. Okay, so Yah literally divorced the northern tribes. So ergo, the southern tribes, that would be in reality Judah and Benjamin, they were dead to them. I'm using the mafia term. If Yah said he divorced you, you're dead to us. So now you are Gentiles, which is what Myron and Chris and others have said here. That's the reason why it gets confusing in the New Testament, because you just think Gentile is etched in your head as non-Israelite, when in reality, they viewed them. Now, we would have just said goy or goyim, they're of the other nations, but that Gentile word was inserted way back when. It's not an in translation, it's an interpretation, because it's trying to frame your mind to something. Does that make sense at all? So I say this here because I don't want to go too long. I say this here. Paul's ministry to Gentiles was a mission to the scattered Israelites who have become indistinguishable from other nations. You can see in Maccabees, a large part of Judeans, forget the scattered because they were already scattered. A large part of Judeans sold themselves out to that time, the Greeks, right? And said, we're not going to do circumcision anymore. We're not going to do the covenants. We're not doing this. They effectively became, these are Judeans. They effectively became, quote unquote, Gentiles. Now let's look at Acts 26, 1-7, and see who Paul is telling you who he's going after. 26, and I'm gonna be quiet from here. Acts 26:1, just context. I'm going all the way back to 26:1. So Agrippa said to Paul, "You have permission to speak for yourself." Then Paul stretched out his hand and made his defense. "I consider myself fortunate, that is, before you, King Agrippa, I'm going to make my defense today against all the accusations of the Judeans, especially because you are familiar with all the customs and controversies of the Judeans. Therefore, I beg you to listen to me patiently. For my manner of life from my youth, spent from the beginning among my own what? Nation." So who is his own nation, right? "And in Jerusalem is known by all the Judeans." 5. "They have known for a long time, if they're willing to testify, that according to the strictest party of our religion, I have lived as a Pharisee. And I now stand here on trial because of my hope in the promise made by Yah to our fathers, to which" what? Somebody please read that. Verse 7.
Our 12 tribes. And he says our fathers, and then it says, "to which our 12 tribes hope to attain as they earnestly worship night and day. And for this hope I am accused by Judeans, O king."
So there we go. Paul tells you who his mission is to. And that's the confusion that we talked about, because it'll say Gentiles, but Paul is telling you, and it's not just here, but it's in other places. If you go look, if you can see my screen, when Paul went places, he went to synagogues. Here's just some examples of the scripture. And Myron, I'll send this to you and you can send it out. Okay?
Yep.
So these are whenever Paul went to a new place, the first place he went to the synagogue. Why did he go to the synagogues? Because that's where the people of Yashraal would be. Right.
And again,
that's where
and I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to reference that word synagogue. Again, people get thrown off with that word synagogue, thinking it's a Jewish thing or whatever the case may be. That word synagogue, when you look it up, all it means is congregation or assembly. That's all it means. It's not necessarily a place of worship. All it means is congregation or assembly. So that's where Paul was doing. Every Shabbat, he was going in the assembly or the congregation of our people to, and those proselytes, of course, to speak repentance and to accept Yahushua Mashiach.
Amen. And along that same line, I know it says church in the Bible. That's ecclesia, which is called out ones, which is basically this.
Ones. Yep.
Right.
Exactly right.
So synagogue and ecclesia and church are really the same thing. It's not the daggone building. Because in all honesty, we already knew if you were a Judean, there was only one temple, right? That was the one that's in Jerusalem. The rest of them were just gathering places, much like what we do tomorrow here in Raleigh. We gather at my house, and then people will be on just like this on Zoom. So that becomes a synagogue, where the congregational assembly, or church, ecclesia, which again, neither one of them, as Myron said, is associated with a physical building. Mm-hmm. All right. So to that point, James 1:1, James will tell you who he's talking to.
Right.
Right. He'll tell you who he's talking to in his book. So I'm gonna pause here. I think you get the gist. Now, again, I do want to come full circle, because I don't want someone misinterpreting that my subscription is. This is what our mission is. Yahweh's or Yahshua's mission was to restore both the northern and southern tribes back into the covenant with Yah, for us to then go do our job. Now, let me not go too far. To do our job, which is be salt and light. I'm gonna read this again for my part. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and understanding in the sight of the peoples, who when they hear these statutes will say, surely this great Goy nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a power so near to it as Yah, our power to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation, Goy, is there that is statutes and rules so righteous, as well as the instruction law, Torah, that I have set before you today? That is ultimately what it is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue about whether you're supposed to be going and chasing out the people or just be people, be the people, and they'll come to you. Yeah, be the light. The light doesn't chase the moth chases the light. Let me just say
it is. But I like to call, and I like to call out the fact that Paul was willing to die for what he believed in. So that's a distinction that I give Paul, that whatever he believed in, he was willing to die for it. But the one thing about going into the synagogues was, the beautiful thing was calling out his people, because that was a hostile environment. Because remember, when he was talking about Yeshua, they didn't believe that Yeshua was the Mashiach. They didn't have that regard for him. He was looking for those people who were with him. And that was, he was going into a hostile environment. So imagine, like you said, going to that synagogue, that was not, hey, Paul, come in today, we want you to talk. When Paul was talking, he was talking to his people. Everybody wasn't gravitating towards him. He wasn't always the exciting guest speaker. You know what I mean? So
and also, again, Myron and I had this conversation. I don't know if we talked over via text, but regardless, we had the conversation that even when you see proselytes, right, those that join the Yashral, you see them being aware of who the person is that they're attracted to, versus that person trying to convert them. Does that make sense? Right? Sure. It's still a uniqueness throughout the Old Testament. I know Naaman, there's various other people who were killed or became proselytes to. We know the whole Naomi story, that they became proselytes to those people, but they weren't chasing them, right? Sure. As much as it was, they were being salt and light, and those people were drawn to that. Much like I just said, the flame doesn't chase the moth chases the flame. That's right. And we are supposed to be, Paul said it, you be a letter written from the Mashiach, right?
Right.
And they then will inquire of you, why are you so different and unique? Why don't you do Christmas and Easter? What are you talking about, these 7 feasts? What do you mean the way? What does that mean? And that is where we're supposed to be salt and light from that capacity. That's just my subscription. I'm not saying that's fact. That's my Myron, I'm done.
All praises, man. And again, family, this is, that etymology or origin of that word Gentile. Again, it's going to tie into what's being coming forth next week, Most High willing. And again, this is all trying to scrub out a lot of what we've been indoctrinated with via Christianity and just worldly philosophies and things of that nature. And I also want to say as well, just because we're bringing this out and we're saying that this text is FUBU, it is for us by us. This text has everything to do with the Most High speaking to his people from beginning to end. Now, that's not saying that, others cannot, cleave and join. For us to say that would be, completely diminishing, the word of the Most High. So we're not saying that, but what we're saying is, there is a cleaning up that needs to happen. We saw, how the word Gentile has been inserted into the text to confuse the masses, to make it seem as if this thing is all inclusive. No, this is the Most High speaking to his people, people that have, have practiced idolatry and have gone away from his law, statutes, and commandments. And now what he's doing, he's reaching back out to his people to call them back home. That's what this text is. That's what this is all about. For us to clean up ourselves in order to be that flame that the moths can be drawn to, and that's what this is all about, man. So definitely want to thank my Danayaal, Danny, for bringing forth this etymology, man. My man, great teacher. Continue to learn a lot from him. And again, like I say, this is not my Zoom. This is our Zoom. This is the fellowship in the whole 9 yards. So, definitely thank him for his work and his research and everything that he brings to the table, man. I always say, man, love you, love you to life, man. So with that, is there anyone that has anything to add? Or I know Thori had put Romans 9. Thori, did you want to speak on Romans 9 or?
No, it was just adding to the fact of who Paul was talking about, and talked about the end of it was talking about the Hosea scripture and the Isaiah scripture. So it was just speaking to the same thing that you guys already spoke to.
All praises.
And I'll learn that Romans 11 is a place of confusion. Talking about the grafted in and grafted out. Prayerfully now, you can see that with a different lens. Where it says there's neither, the Galatians says neither Jew nor Greek. Now remember, in that case, there's no Judean and Greek. So Judeans who adopted Greek culture were called Hellenists. And that's what it's referring to there, is that you will actually see that in the Greek text, but again, they even translate that into Gentile. You will see the word Hellenist, Greek text, but they make it say Gentile for, I hate to say, confusion. So that also can help with Romans 11, where it talks about grafted in, because when people see that, they say Israel was thrown out and the Gentiles were grafted in. Well, that's not what it's one, but it's also that same metaphor, which Romans 11 is nothing but Ezekiel 37 towards the end, where it's talking about bringing. That's what it is.
That's exactly it. Yeah, because I'm definitely gonna bring that out next week, and because a lot of people get thrown off with the Jew and the Greek, and again, everything is all contextual. You know what I mean? I mean, we had a huge portion of scriptures that were taking out of the text. Of course, definitely not by accident. To confuse the masses, and basically, just like Psalm 83 says, so that the name of Yasharal will be no more, as well as taking the in their minds, removing the power of Yah from the earth. You know what I mean? That's what was in their minds. So all of this is crafty counsel. So right now, again, this is what we're doing. We're scrubbing these things out so that we can be a better people, to the Most High, and be that flame that Danny was talking about. That's what we want to be. We want to be that flame that others can be drawn to the Most High. So again, I just want to thank my man Danny for that that teaching, as well as everyone who chimed in, man. Again, please, again, don't feel like you have to be quiet or anything like that. I don't see myself as a scholar or anything like that. We all should be Bereans. Again, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we are all shepherds of the sheep. We are all learning. We are all seeking. And, this is what this is for, so that we can build each other up, in our most holy faith. All praises. So, is there anyone else that has anything or any questions? Like, again, no. The family, again, thank everyone for coming on and fellowshipping with us today. Definitely love y'all. Again, we hand in hand in this thing. So again, if there's anything at all, please feel free to, speak up, put it in the chat, whatever it is, iron sharpen iron, just as man sharpens man. So, We all in this together, family. So again, thank y'all for coming on. And I want to ask from my heart, Sister Kim, are you available to close this out in prayer? We can turn our hearts back off towards the east, towards Jerusalem, to our land. And Sister Kim will close us out. Thank you, sis. Appreciate you.
Hallelujah. Well, once again, we just come before you, thanking you for the word that you gave to us today through Danny. We ask that you would continue to bless each one of us, that we would learn to, open our hearts and our mind to the truths that we're learning. And we just ask that you would just bless everyone who made it to the call and those who couldn't, and that we would just continue to seek your word and gather together. And we love you and we thank you for everything that you do for us. And we pray this in your son's mighty name.
Amen.
So yeah, so again, blessings, family. Family love y'all. Family love y'all, and everyone, and continue to enjoy your day in the Most High. Love y'all, family. All praises.
All praise.
Love you.